But UNESCO has added the ancient city of Babylon to its list of World Heritage Sites. This finally brings to fruition Iraq's 36 years of efforts to get the 10 square kilometer site recognized. Incidentally, only 18% of the site has been excavated. And Babylon was the center of the ancient empire more than 4,000 years ago. The city was first mentioned in the 23rd century BC and may have been home to one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Hanging Gardens. UNESCO's World Heritage Committee, which met in Azerbaijan, was considering Babylon and another 34 sites, including in Brazil and Burkina Faso for the list. Excavation in Babylon began in the early 1800s and artifacts were sent abroad, including parts of the Ishtar Gate, which remain in museums across Europe. However, the historic site suffered immense damage under the Saddam Hussein regime subsequently during the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. UNESCO on Friday said the site's extremely vulnerable condition sparked serious concerns, with many structures in urgent need of conservation and several on the verge of collapse, but it opted not to designate Babylon as the world's heritage site in danger after objections from Iraq, and instead said it would work with local authorities to set a plan for conservation. Well, that's a wrap on this news bulletin. But before we go, a recent discovery throws light on one of the many mysteries of the Christian Bible. DNA tests helped researchers tracking down the origins of an ancient people often quoted in the Holy Book, the Philistines, often portrayed as villains and violent. Here's a look at this report. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
A team of archaeologists in Israel, with the help of sophisticated DNA tests, have managed to solve one of the most mysterious biblical enigmas. In Christian mythology, there are many stories related to the Philistines, an ancient people portrayed as villains and enemies of the Israelites. The story of how a young Israelite shepherd, David, killed the violent Philistine giant Goliath with his sling is one of the most famous tales in the Bible. Researchers knew that the Philistines lived in southern Israel and in today's Gaza, but where they came from was a mystery.
Our study has shown for the first time that the Philistines immigrated to this region in the 12th century. We didn't show it by showing similar styles of pottery. We didn't show it by looking at texts. We showed it by looking at the DNA of the people themselves. And we were able to show that in the 12th century, we can see at Ashkelon new DNA coming in from this immigrant population that is really changing the whole region.
The team took DNA samples from skeletons found in the first Philistine cemetery ever discovered near the southern Israeli city of Ashkelon. The inner ear managed to preserve DNA samples over millennia.
This ancestral component is derived from Europe, or to be more specific, from southern Europe. So the ancestors of the Philistines must have traveled across the Mediterranean and arrive in Ashkelon sometimes between the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age.
The data also shows what happened next.
There's a second conclusion to the study that I think is also very interesting. Not only did we find what happened in the 12th century, but we also found what happened a few hundred years later. What we found out was that after a few hundred years, the Philistines intermarried with the people around them and no longer looked distinctive genetically. Even though they didn't look distinctive genetically, we still have them remembering that they came from someplace else. So even hundreds of years after their genetic distinctiveness was lost, we still read that the Philistines think of themselves as people who came from outside.
We gotta lift that up, but that's what we're sort of...
This discovery will portray how the human species evolved throughout history, explaining why modern societies are the result of millennia of migration processes and intertwinement between newcomers and locals. DNA tests have shown how every human being carries genes coming from different and often very distant places.
This discovery tells us also a lot about the very nature of West Asia, a place located between the East and the West on commercial routes for centuries, millennia. Traders, merchants, armies, soldiers and immigrants met and mixed here. giving birth to the very diversified society that inhabits this region. Daniele Pagani, reporting from Jordan for WION, World is One.